Today we're going to talk about Unit 1. This time period covers 1492 to 1607, and it's discussing Christopher Columbus all the way to the first permanent English settlement, which was Jamestown. What you should understand first is that American history does not begin with Jamestown in 1607. American history actually goes back to the earliest European explorers coming to America, risking their lives and finding North and South America and then settling here. But actually, American history goes back even further, and that's talking about who the earliest Europeans found when they came to the New World, and that included the earliest Americans. And the earliest Americans are pictured here on this map, the earliest human migrations. And there are a few theories. One, about 20,000 years ago, sometime around the Ice Age, that the earliest Americans crossed a land bridge from Asia into what's today Alaska and down through Canada into North America, through Central America, and down into South America. This migration did not happen overnight. This migration happened over a period of time. And where these earliest Americans settled in North America is important to us, because when the Europeans do arrive, these are the earliest Americans that they found here. First, we're going to talk about the fact that when we talk about American history, is that we're talking about the United States, or what is today the United States. And the United States, for purposes of this first unit, is divided up into 4 different geographical areas. The first area we're going to talk about is in the Pacific, or in the Southwest, and that's this yellow area here. And the specific culture group that we're going to talk about are the Pueblos. The Pueblos are characterized geographically by the fact that they live in a desert area, and so the areas that they developed for civilization tended to be in cliffs. Their homes tended to be made out of sun-dried mud, known today as adobe. And the fact that they struggled for survival is amazing from the standpoint that they were very agricultural. And the reason why they were able to do that is, one particular instance is three sister farming, which there's a picture of it here. And that is, whatever land that they developed through irrigation or bringing water to, they realized the importance of that land and that they needed to have a high yield. And so what they would do in one particular acre of land is grow corn, squash, and beans. The beans would run up the corn stalk, and the squash would be protected from the sun from the leaves of the corn. In this picture, you can see the irrigation ditches that were built by the earliest Pueblo to provide water. Another area was in the Great Basin. And living in the Great Basin, one example was the Paiute Indians. And the Great Basin is pictured here, between the Sierra Nevadas of California and the Colorado Rockies. This was a deep area and shielded from the rain from the Pacific Ocean. So this is home to the world's largest desert. And so the Indians that lived here lacked a lot of natural resources. They depended on their religion, which was that of practicing the worship of many different entities. And one of the particulars of this group was something called the ghost dance. And this is where they would do a dance to get help from their ancestors, or to get help from the spirits as it related to warfare or as it related to the climate. The Paiute used primitive tools like this rabbit stick, which would be used to kill small animals, and digging sticks, which would be used to, at any point in the desert, to search for water. The Sioux Indians lived in the Great Plains area. The Great Plains area is pictured here, from the Rocky Mountains back to the Mississippi River. And they were characterized by a mobile lifestyle, often referred as being nomadic. For food and clothing, they depended on the buffalo, or what it was really known as and what it really should be called is the bison, because our buffalo in North America have hair. And so they're bison. Buffalo are mostly found in Asia, and they're hairless. The Eastern Woodland Indians, the one we're more understanding of, is the area around this aqua-colored area here, and this was home to two very large groups. The most powerful one was known as the Iroquois Confederacy, and it consisted of 5 different Native American groups, and they settled mostly up here in the New York area, and they were a very powerful military alliance, very similar to the Aztecs that you studied in world history. Contrary to other Native American groups, though, the Iroquois really respected the role of women in their tribe. And here's a picture of a woman, and she's holding a stick in her hand, which gives her the right to speak to the tribe. And that was really unheard of in other Native American tribes, and particularly in white European society. Women did not have the right to vote, and women did not have a right to participate in democratic affairs. The last group that I want to talk about today is in the Pacific Northwest, and that's up here in this blue area. And the group that we're going to talk about in particular are the Chinook. And the Chinook are pretty famous for their totem poles, which I like to liken to like tombstones, but with a lot more information on them. These were very well carved, and a lot of times they would have images of their ancestors carved into them, or images of animals that the tribe worshipped. And each clan, each tribe within the Chinook family would have their own totem pole. They lived near the Pacific Ocean, so this group was characterized by the fact they depended on hunting, gathering, and fishing, and they were very good at fishing because they lived near lots of rivers, and they also lived near the ocean, so they were good at whaling. An unusual characteristic of the Chinook is that they binded their young children, and this was for social class purposes. The wealthiest of the Chinook would do this to their children so that their children would grow up with flattened heads and would be recognized by other members of the tribe as being wealthy. The Chinook lived in long houses. This is different from the Indians that lived in the Great Plains in their mobile lifestyles. These buildings would be built for permanent residence. Sometimes upwards of 50 people would live in this one long house. Grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, everybody would live in there. The last characteristic that I want to talk about with the Chinook was the potlatch. And the potlatch was a party that the individual families would have within the Chinook tribe to give away their possessions to the other members of the tribe. And what this ensured, different from European culture, the Native Americans shared. They shared land, they shared their possessions. Europeans were all about, this is mine, I'm going to put a fence up around it, posted, no hunting. But the Indians were very much a sharing group. This concludes the lesson today on Unit 1, and specifically about the Native Americans that the earliest Europeans found when they came to the New World.